So, look, I think I prefaced this before, but just to give everybody a rundown, I've got a few questions that I think we'll run through just to give everybody an overview of Immutable and those kind of things, and we can open it to community questions later to talk more about VeVe moving to Immutable and those kind of things. So if that suits everybody, maybe we'll just start with some of your story, Robbie. How did you get into this space? What led to Gods Unchained, and then we'll get into the Immutable story.
Yeah, of course. I first entered the blockchain space in 2014 with Bitcoin, and before that, my brother and I were software engineers, self-taught, and we had done a bunch of different startups. We were massive gamers, so at one point we built a platform you could bet on your own League of Legends games. We built a Shopify competitor called ShopYak. We also had one of Australia's largest hoverboard companies. So we were really, we just liked building things, and we were getting more and more into software engineering. And in 2014, we found Bitcoin. In particular, in 2015, we found Ethereum. And we loved Ethereum, and we were obsessed with Ethereum. I remember the thing that convinced me that this would be the future of the world was literally just using a gambling app on, I think it was Etherroll. And you essentially throw this dice and it, doubles your money or takes your money. And it wasn't the fact that I'm not a gambler, and I don't think that's the exciting potential of Ethereum, but it's the fact that with 5 or 10 lines of code, someone could create a completely permissionless, disintermediated machine, which could, render redundant these hundreds of billions of dollars spent in regulation and compliant payouts and enforcing probabilities, overnight. And so clearly this is going to become the future of how kind of all logic and all asset ownership was run. And then in 2017, we saw CryptoPunks come out and the first kind of NFTs. And I remember saying to my brother, this is going to be huge because you're taking the value proposition of crypto, which is self-custodial ownership, the ability to have scarce digital assets and decentralization. So no intermediary or central party, and you're applying it to everything. It's not just financial assets now. It's gaming items. It's unique financial assets. It's stuff. The stuff that financial services exists to financially service. And I know that gaming was the first place that we thought this would take off. And so we said, let's build a game. So we sort of built a proof of concept game called Etherbots back then, which was basically completely on chain. I think it would cost you $8,000 or $10,000 to run a match right now. Learned a lot from that. And then we said, well, look, we want to build NFT infrastructure ultimately, but no one really cares about NFTs. So we have to build compelling content. And to us, that was Gods Unchained, which now obviously has Chris Clay, the guy who made Magic the Gathering Arena, leading that. And obviously the last 2 years, the company have been really focused on NFT infrastructure and how can we help these types of content and others succeed by building a way to trade NFTs completely scalably on a completely secure environment.
Right. There was quite a lot to unpack there. I want to come back to the hoverboard company at some point. But you guys were, I followed Gods Unchained for quite a while now, probably since almost its inception. And you guys were pioneers in the space then in figuring out how to maximize the block space to be able to run those transactions on chain. Now, I think it's probably fair to say that with gas and congestion and things, you then needed to find a new solution, which I assume is how the road led to Immutable. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And the two criteria I always say we had to look at was number one, security, and number two, network effects. They're really, you can't compromise on either of those. And so, we looked at a ton of solutions back in the day. We looked at state channels, we looked at plasma. To be quite honest, nothing existed, which I think is why, people had to go to alternatives. People had to go to things like GoChain back in the day. But then, we first saw the first mainnet implementation of scalability a couple of years ago with zero knowledge proofs. And we said, this doesn't compromise on security. So no matter what, users' assets are safe. And that's important because, even looking at what you've built with VeVe, there's going to be billions of dollars worth of assets on this thing. You can't have that on something which is insecure, or people won't be buying this stuff for the value that it should have. Like, this has to be absolutely locked down. So that was kind of our first criterion. And the second is network effects. Like you have to build it on the thing that people already want to use. And that's why we didn't want to compete with Ethereum. We wanted to build a scaling solution on top of Ethereum. And that's kind of how we came to the infrastructure we've built today.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with the network effects. It's, I mean, a big driver as to why we're moving back to Ethereum now, and all those kind of things. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds on the technology side with ZK, the ZK rollups and things, but do you want to just explain how that technology actually helps you to is it compressing transactions? Is it that most of the logic happens off chain and you're just committing financial transactions to the main chain? Like, what is the stack there, and how does that kind of operate?
Yeah, great question. So it's really simple. Basically, instead of transactions occurring on the Ethereum mainnet and everything costing gas, you take those same transactions, but instead of them, being a transaction, they're just a signature. So you're taking your private key and you're saying, yep, I'm executing this trade. And we can obviously never falsify those things. They're still guaranteed by the same level of security that you do when you do an ordinary transaction, because it's relating to your private key. And then what we do is we batch all of those signatures up into what is called a zero knowledge proof, which we're able to have it upload to the Ethereum mainnet at a very fixed cost. So we could take hundreds of thousands of transactions and upload them, say, for the cost of 100.
Right. I didn't realize it was a fixed cost kind of thing. So the limitations are really just a matter of how much adoption you have as to how much data you can send back or choose to send back to the main chain.
Exactly. Look, technically polylogarithmic, but functionally fixed cost. And our costs do scale, but they actually scale with like AWS instances. So the maths that it takes to create these proofs is quite intensive, and that's not cheap, but it is very cheap compared to 100 gas fees on Ethereum. Yeah.
So then, in your choosing of Starkware's ZK proofs, I'm guessing there's a few other ZK proof or ZK providers out there. I mean, what was the reasoning with going with their technology, and what is it that makes it more specific for NFTs or better suited to you guys?
Yeah, look, I think Starkware was just by far the best ZK proof implementer for building the scaling infrastructure we wanted to. I could list some things that are important, but they don't sound that interesting. So they're quantum resistant, which means they're future proof into the next couple of decades. What was really important to us ultimately is the scale of companies we want to be able to service are, like you're bringing hundreds of thousands of users over and a ton of assets. You can't do that on an optimism or an optimistic rollup, even though that is a better solution for some things. And there's two reasons to that. The first is user custody and security is reduced because it has a 2-week fraud period every time you upload a batch. So if you want to withdraw your funds from the rollup, you have to wait 2 weeks. And you can kind of get around that with DeFi applications, with market makers and stuff. You can't with a unique NFT. I can't loan you or figure out the value of your, one-of-a-kind collectible. But the second one is much simpler, which is it's less cost efficient. So at the scale of transactions we're doing, we can afford to power hundreds of thousands of transactions, whereas even on an optimistic rollup, you are still paying, essentially a linear cost per transaction, even though that's a reduced linear cost. So it just simply doesn't work for the scale of companies that we're trying to power.
Okay, so it's more on the scale of companies than the actual assets that are being moved, or it's all in part of the same thing?
No, I think they're both really important. So at the end of the day, we're trying to build a solution where if someone wants to withdraw their assets, they should be able to, almost instantaneously and with complete confidence that they get to retain full control of their funds and full control of those assets at all times. So that's something we never wanted to compromise on, because that's what allows these market caps to become so valuable. This portfolio of unique assets. It's the underlying the underlying security and trust that people know that their assets are stored with.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when it comes to withdrawing assets, I very poorly explained the difference between L1, L2, and side chains in a recent AMA. When people move to layer 2, where do you see that? Does the user experience then just stay at layer 2, or can you move between layer 1 and layer 2? Is there a need for that once you've made the transition? Like, how does that all kind of tie in?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I mean, the thing that I love about Immutable X is like you can withdraw your assets at any time. And we're building out features that support that. So, I mean, the ideal thing to me is like, let's imagine you have a bunch of collectibles and you want to create an index fund out of those collectibles and allow people to participate in DeFi. It's all very well and good to try and do that right now. But every single time you want to list one of those items in an index in a secure manner, it costs you a gas fee. So if you want to put, say, 100 collectibles into like a particular collectible index fund and allow that to be traded or listed, you're talking about 100 times gas fees. So 100 times 50 and $5,000. Or if it's 10,000, you're looking at an even bigger number. And so the kinds of things we're building is via zero knowledge proofs, the ability to turn that into an index fund in our layer 2 environment, and then take the resulting ERC20 back to layer 1 and use that in your DeFi or whatever. So whatever we can create cheaply and securely in our layer 2 empowers people to interoperate with layer 1 in a much, much better manner. But like, absolutely, at the core of what we're doing is like, you own your stuff. You can do whatever you like with that, whether that's withdrawing it back to layer 1, and there's no centralized bridge in between. It's not a side chain. It's not a different layer 1 or a Polkadot or a parachain. Like, this lives and breathes with the same level of security and the same level of interoperability as mainnet assets on Ethereum.
Yeah. I think that's really integral to the design, and as you say, it's so crucial to the security moving forward. Obviously, ETH being the most decentralized blockchain now, I think it's trumped Bitcoin in that regard, or it's close to if it hasn't yet. It's really cool to see this kind of stuff evolve. How long has Immutable actually been live? It's not that we're not that.
It's brand new. The actual protocol is brand new. So we had Epic's GG go live on Immutable X last week, which is really exciting, with their collective marketplace. We basically, we've been around for a few months now in beta, and we're rolling out our permissionless version of Immutable X over the coming weeks, where anyone's going to be able to come and kind of start instantly using us, which I think is really important.
Yeah. So it does kind of become a bit more plug and play for new companies to move over. Yeah, unreal. And you just touched on the marketplace there. So can you just give me a bit of a rundown on, I guess, the umbrella of Immutable? Obviously, you guys are the protocol layer or the chain, and then we come and build on top, same way that VeVe's moving across. But you also have an Immutable marketplace. Is that a collective marketplace for all apps that are built on top, or is it just for Gods Unchained right now? Like, how does that kind of map out?
Yeah, good question. It's a separate product to our protocol. Ultimately, why we build the marketplace is to be of service to companies building on top of us. So, the goal of that is basically to have a place that you can view any asset listed on Immutable X, but we certainly don't plan on listing, competing with marketplaces. Like, we're not going to be listing assets that aren't on Immutable X.
Right.
And, I'm sure that'll evolve over time, whether that's into more of a block explorer or we consider open sourcing it. Ultimately, our goal is just to help the businesses building on Immutable X build better products faster.
Yeah. And did I see recently you guys have mentioned something with OpenSea as well, or OpenSea is integrating the Immutable X protocol?
Yeah, we're really excited about that. So we'll be a supported layer 2 on OpenSea. So any asset that you trade on Immutable X, that's, so any, say, VeVe collectible will also be viewable and tradable on OpenSea.
Yeah, okay.
And the goal is to have that supported anywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Same, everywhere these things can be supported is better for the ecosystem as a whole, I would think. Okay, that's interesting. So I've kind of looked at Starkware's roadmap, and I know that their technology continues to develop and scale. So presumably so does Immutables and everybody else's. Where do you see that going? I mean, is there a goal in terms of transactions that you want to be able to achieve? Have you got sort of rough estimates as to how expansive this ecosystem is yet to become?
Yeah, this is where we probably diverge. Starkware at the end of the day is creating proof technology. So that's their thing. They do the maths and they're fantastic at that, and we have a very strong partnership with them. What we're trying to do is build the network and the protocol and the ecosystem to power all unique assets around the world. Ideally, we want to be, if you're trading a unique asset, whether that's a bond, whether that's a term deposit, whether that's a Batman collectible, whether it's a video game item, or whether that's a rare piece of art, we want to help make it so that if you're trading on Immutable X, you have a completely frictionless experience. You get the best possible price for those assets. And if businesses are building things, they can create these NFTs at massive, massive scale. So, tens of millions of NFTs per day.
Yeah, incredible. I think, I mean, I'm guilty of this. When I think NFT, I think collectibles, because that's obviously the space that we're in. But it's easy to forget that NFTs really can represent any sort of asset, any illiquid asset. And I guess that's the market sector for that is just exponential in itself. So that's that'll be cool to watch develop. What do you where do you see the future of L2s? I mean, are all L2s going to be able to talk to each other at some point? Is that kind of the goal, or is everyone just building individually at the moment?
Yeah, look, I'm sure that L2 interoperability will happen. It will always happen in the same way as, sidechain interoperability happens or other things. So I think there will be benefits to using a particular L2 dedicated for a particular purpose. But look, I think, there are so many different companies wanting so many different things out of blockchain. Some companies want a completely walled garden. They want to build, a closed blockchain environment. Some banks, want to use things like Ripple, and that's their positioning. And ultimately, that's fine. All that I'm about is making sure users know the difference. Because to me, it's very, very important. Because whichever one of these takes off and truly does become the network for how things are traded, is going to become the governing standard by which we own digital assets in the future. And I think it's very important that that's decentralized and not owned by a VC, and not owned by a particular company. And that's why we decided to leave that stuff to Ethereum, rather than trying to, say, create a competing blockchain or sidechain.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, as you mentioned earlier, you're very aligned with Ethereum and those values there. Did you ever, in the transition from Gods Unchained, kind of maxing out the block space and then developing Immutable, did you look at other chains? Was that ever an option, or was it always Ethereum?
Yeah, of course. I'm not an Ethereum maximalist for no reason. I'm an Ethereum maximalist because Ethereum in March had 2 million smart contracts created by developers. Flow had 50. So really, you can't, and this is what Vitalik talks about, giving a project a soul. And I totally understand why people had to use alternative solutions earlier on. But the reason you guys have made this move is because you care about what's going to be best for your users, and what's going to be best for your business. And you know that your collectibles are going to be more valuable. There are going to be higher adoption of it, and they're going to be completely secure if you can use an infrastructure which inherits the network effects and security of Ethereum. So really, that's what's important to me. Of course, we looked at every blockchain under the sun. We had blockchains offering us tens of millions of dollars to move Gods Unchained over to it. It's a very competitive space out there. But I don't ever want to compromise on those two things that I said earlier, which is, one, users need to own their stuff, and no one should be able to take it away from them. Even Ethereum has been classified as not a security by the SEC. So I think even from a regulatory perspective, I'm much more comfortable trying to build the infrastructure, the digital assets on there. And the second is network effects. You don't want to be in a siloed environment. You want to be where everyone's trading, because that's when your assets are going to be most valuable, and your users can have the best experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just raises that exposure of all the assets to new audiences as well. As you said, the space is very competitive. I know when we were looking at our new technology partner, that the same thing. A lot of platforms offered us a lot of incentives to move across, but without a doubt, you guys were the best solution for us. Not only because of the low gas and all those things, the carbon neutrality as well, but as you said, Ethereum's really got those network effects going. So, Dan, I think you're in here as well. If you can hear me, do you want to just give a bit more insight into how we kind of came to Immutable and made that move?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to what Robbie was saying, we and as you mentioned, we were talking to a lot of different chains out there, and then again, very similar to Robbie's philosophy as well, is that really thinking forward into the future, the most important thing is to really understand where the technology is going to go. In terms of interoperability, what everyone's using, I think that's going to come more and more to the fore as crypto and blockchains get, more adapted by the masses. And so for us, looking at all of the other chains, obviously there's Flow and all these guys, and don't get me wrong, they're doing a great job. But, for us, it was making sure that we had the highest degree of interoperability, and obviously tapping into, one of the largest networks out there in the crypto space, which is Ethereum at the moment. So, there were, as I think I've mentioned on a couple of other interviews, there were really sort of four key components to choosing the right chain. Number one, which I've mentioned, is interoperability. There was obviously the gas fees, which are currently sort of plaguing Ethereum. So that's where, the layer 2 and Immutable's technology is very, very advantageous. Number three, the environmental side of things. I mean, I'm still of the opinion that, it's better to buy something digital than something plastic. And of course, there's going to be energy usage with anything out there, but there are obviously degrees of pollution. And I think it's, in my own personal opinion, electricity is better to consume rather than, pumping out plastics. And then, the fourth thing was just the ability to integrate into VeVe, which ultimately, at the end of the day, is a fairly complex product. And the great thing about Immutable is that, they're really a technology company and a technology provider. And that allows us to plug them in the same way that we plug in everything else, whether it's Unity or, any of the other technologies that we use. Whereas some of the other providers out there, it was more about coming under their umbrella and, sort of celebrating who they are. Whereas we're just looking for a tech partner. And then lastly, of course, I think, as I've mentioned, we're all from down under. So, it's good to be supporting the Southern Hemisphere technology teams.
That was the main one.
Of course, we got to be south of the equator, right?
That's it.
I did want to say as well, I think one of the really exciting things about this partnership is helping create the ecosystem via our technology. So the thing that really excites me is not only can you do NFT transfers for free or NFT creations, but also ERC20s. So suddenly, if you want to be paying people in say, a fungible token, whether that's OMI or something else, as like an incentive for particular actions, you can now do this in micro actions. So a user does like this particular thing and they can get a cent, and it doesn't cost you $50 in gas fees. This is how we're looking at working with a lot of partners. So I think that the one of the really exciting things is suddenly the building of a fungible token network is no longer constrained by the gas fees of remitting these tokens.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same technology that's between ERC20 and the NFTs. Like it's the proofs allowing that to happen on both sides.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like you said, it's super exciting. It changes the way that we can reward people. It changes the way that interactions and transactions happen. So, I'm super excited on the migration to get over there. I'm with you. I am an Ethereum maximalist as well, with good reason. But yeah, all right. Well, look, that's all I had on my list, guys. We might open the floor for a few questions if that suits the two of you. If anyone who's up here as a speaker at them, perfect. If anyone, Kay or Mark.
I was going to say that suits me, but let's keep any questions about Slimer and VeVeWiki till later on while we've got Robbie on the call.
Yeah, perfect. So go for it, guys, if you're up here, and I'll invite a few more up to speak as well.
Hey, Robbie, how's it going? So I've got a question here. So I'm a fellow software engineer as well. So I was lurking around on the one of your GitHub repos, the Immutable one with Gods Unchained, the kind of developer API documentation. And in terms of VeVe at the moment, because it is still early days, we've got kind of buying and selling of NFTs on a sort of one-to-one basis. With the move to Immutable, so this doesn't have to be specific to VeVe, but just generally, does being on Immutable in terms of features for users, does it enable kind of, more ease of transitions into, say, trading in batches. So trading, one NFT for multiple NFTs, linking NFTs together. So sort of interactions in the sense that one NFT can kind of be associated with another. Any of these kind of features that people are kind of excited about seeing, would Immutable X be able to kind of support these sort of transactions?
100%. Yeah, awesome question. This is all we are focused on. So at the end of the day, what our company is obsessed with is building the best possible experience to trade unique assets in a decentralized manner. And what is the most important thing? It's liquidity. It's price. It's the ability to trade things for good prices very quickly with people who want to trade it. And that's a really tall ask with NFTs, because NFTs are fundamentally antithetical to liquidity, because the whole point is you have uniqueness and provenance. It's why we never wanted to compromise and use ERC 1155, because you no longer have the uniqueness. You no longer have the ability to say, Ninja used this skin in Fortnite, or this celebrity had this, particular collectible. So that is kind of what we're obsessed with building, is having the flexibility to both retain provenance, but also allow people to trade things in a very liquid manner. Now, to your specific question, you asked about two things. One is one-to-many batch transfers, and two, the ability to trade items based on their characteristics rather than just on their unique ID. The first, absolutely. I mean, the beautiful thing about us is it doesn't cost you to transfer. So if you want to be executing 100 trades, we're building out an experience where you can sign a transaction and all 100 of those go through instantaneously. So suddenly you can have, financial market makers executing algorithmic order books on NFTs and market making and, creating index funds. Like these are the futures where these actually become financial assets. To me, the future of NFTs is we're probably going to see Goldman Sachs trading desks in a decade, and we're going to have hedging strategies where people are going, long French Renaissance NFTs or punks from this particular period, and they're going short on another particular collectible given the cultural zeitgeist. And I think that's awesome. I think that's sick. I think these are the kind of primitives that we want to be able to support. The second thing is 100% check out our article on metadata-based trade orders. This is probably the thing I'm most excited about releasing over the next 6 months, which is the ability to, right now, if you own an NFT and it's a one of a kind, you can only list that NFT for its own specific market. So let's say you have, Gods Unchained is the example I can use. There's 14 million cards in Gods Unchained. That means you actually have 14 million individual order books, each with their own bids, asks, and spreads. And what that means is you can't actually create a bid or an ask on the thing you want to trade. Let's say you don't care about the unique ID, you don't care about the provenance for a particular thing. You just want to buy any asset which hits a criterion. Maybe it is I want to buy any Givenchy asset on VeVe or any Diamond Dragon in Gods Unchained. You can't do that right now. In fact, it's impossible on layer one because that's how NFTs are designed. But with zero knowledge proofs, we can allow you to list instantaneously and simultaneously your asset in both its own unique market and a market based on its metadata. So suddenly you can collapse the 14 million markets in Gods Unchained down to 14,000 just based on the type of card it is, which is literally 1,000-fold increase in liquidity and likely will have a commensurate impact on price. This is the stuff that really matters. So yeah, it's a great question. It's what we're focused on.
Thank you. That was a fantastic, very in-depth answer. I do have one other community question. So this comes from someone in the Ecomi chat. So they asked, not VeVe specifically, but just in general, how long does it kind of take for a project that's on another chain to kind of migrate onto Immutable, and what are the general steps involved in that migration?
Typically, if it's from another chain, you'd probably be doing a fork of the assets, and so it would just be us, minting those with all the metadata, and we would make it completely provable and auditable. You could very slowly actually deposit it. So if you got it onto Ethereum layer 1 somehow, you could start depositing them into our layer 2. It'd be very expensive and very slow. So yeah, we typically try and make this as easy as possible. It would not take a particularly long time.
Nice. That's good to know. Yeah.
Useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Claire, if you've got a question, you're up here as well.
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just thinking, really, it was only because of this announcement, and there's been somebody who has collected designer handbags in the past. All my money goes on VeVe now, but it's kind of like, I know that some of the brands are moving onto a different way to digitalize how you authenticate your bag. So it made me think, is there a way of having like an NFT of a physical item that you can then kind of prove both the physical and the digital ownership at the same time?
Yeah, this is a great question. Dan,
Sorry,
do you
Robbie.
want to take this?
You tackle it. I'll jump in after.
Of course, I'll go quickly. I think it's a great question. I am looking forward to seeing this happen over the next couple of years. Ultimately, it's a tricky issue because you somehow have to bind physical ownership to the digital ownership of the NFT, which is why I think digital collectibles have taken off so much, because there is no need for that relationship to be maintained between a digital and a physical asset. But we're 100% going to see it. I mean, like the thing I always point to is how many unique markets around the world would be benefited by having NFTs represent their ownership. Even the secondary wine market, there's $5 billion worth of wine traded every year, not to be drunk, just be stored in vaults. And the websites that facilitate these trades take crazy rates of like 30%. This is 100% where NFTs should come in and represent a better form of ownership. Obviously, someone will have to take on the responsibility of ensuring that NFT maps to ownership of that good. But, I think we're seeing companies more and more view the benefit of non-custodial. By that, I mean, it's not shipped to you, it's just stored on your behalf, and you can trade a representation of that asset.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we see that when it comes to real estate and some of those things, right? You can create markets now, or liquid markets around illiquid assets without actually having to receive the asset to claim ownership of it. So I think that'll be really interesting. And Dan, I think you were going to chime in there maybe to point out that we are doing a physical digital release soon.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Obviously, with our Ron English rabbit grin, will be one of the first collectibles that VeVe produces that is both the NFT and you will get the physical item shipped out to you in a very beautiful box, I must say. We've just signed off on the box design. But yeah, as Robbie said, I think one of the difficulties with the digital and the physical and using the NFT as some form of authentication or direct ownership is there obviously is a very distinctive disconnection between the digital world and the physical world, in the sense that, to use our Ron English example, you might buy the NFT and then you might get the physical version, a couple of weeks later. But at that point, you could choose to sell either of them individually. So I think the challenge in this physical digital is really, how are they going to be linked in any way? I know that some of the luxury brands are using, some form of tokenization, more around authentication. So you buy a product. Let's say, for example, you go to Thailand and you buy a totally legit LV handbag for your wife who's very happy about it. And then, there's really very little way to authenticate that item, but by, embedding, whether it's an RFID chip or, some kind of QR code or anything like that, you can then link that physical item through to some kind of authentication mechanism online. But I think the tie or the pair between physical and digital is still a challenge that needs to be surmounted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just from a collectible standpoint, do you think that continuing to explore that bridge between physical and digital will push the NFT industry forward? I mean, we're seeing a lot of people now who are buying some of our VeVe collectibles and then going and buying the physical counterpart just because they're enjoying it. So, I kind of see this world where they intertwine and support each other rather than having to leave behind the physical to move to the digital. Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, I don't think the physical world of collecting is going anywhere. Well, at least maybe until we're all wearing, AR wearables of some sort. But, people still want to have, cool collectibles in their house. They want to be surrounded by, those brand items that they love, both in the physical world and in the digital world. And we will be having other products coming up in the future where it's the other way around, where you'll go and buy, if you buy the item in the physical world, then you will, potentially get the NFT version of that for free. And it's just a great way to bridge across those, those two different worlds. And from our point of view, it's it's a great way for us to onboard new users. You go and buy this new physical item from wherever, and then there's a note in the box that you get the free digital version, and then that will hopefully entice the user to come onto the VeVe platform, claim their free version, and from there, because we all know, right, no one wants just one collectible in their showroom. So they move on to, to buy some more on the platform. So we're definitely going to be exploring that a lot more throughout this year.
Nice. I think that just that little tidbit will get people excited as well. Now, I know we've only got Robbie for probably another 5 minutes or so we'll pepper him with a couple more. Rushka, I believe you've been waiting for a question, if you're in here, mate. And if not, Jacob, if you've got something lined up, feel free.
Yeah, I do have a quick question after Jacob.
Yeah, go, yep. All right, let's go Rushka, and then we'll go yourself, good sir, and then Jacob can come in. Can't hear you there, mate, if you're talking, by the way.
I can go if we're waiting on some technical difficulties.
Yeah, go for it. Yep, let's do that.
All right, so my question is around kind of developer support. I know you mentioned that you were looking to open it up and get out of the beta. And I know that you've had some developer platform support in the past with Unchained or Gods Unchained from, I think, Alchemy and maybe some others. But I was wondering if you have any plans for developer API platforms or partnering with someone like that for Immutable X.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have an API platform. We're on a constant journey to make that better and better. Ultimately, the vision that I want for Immutable X is anyone can come and use and build NFTs on Ethereum and have them tradable everywhere without ever having to even say hi to us. Obviously, partnerships with people like VeVe, we're always going to hold their hand and kind of make sure it's a great experience. But ultimately, we're building infrastructure. And so, hiring Cole, if you're passionate about building that kind of documentation or want to come work with us, please do apply. This is our main thing we're focused on right now.
Okay, so it sounds like you're having a more internal approach and not looking to partner with outside API platforms or developer groups.
What do you mean by outside platforms, Jacob?
I just know that you guys worked with Alchemy in the past. That's the only one I really know of. I think Infura might be another one, things like that. They're kind of building developer tools and APIs to help businesses kind of track the transactions that are occurring. So I was just wondering I know that a lot of people use them for layer 1. So I was wondering if you were going to use them for layer 2 or how that works. Right.
That makes sense. Yeah, 100%. That's it. Slightly different. Absolutely, we'll be pursuing ecosystem support wherever we can. I believe we already use Alchemy and Infura in our stack. I was more speaking about the experience of integrating with. So Immutable X is a set of APIs to integrate with. You don't need blockchain experience. And improving that documentation, we ultimately want it to be Stripe-like, to come and build a business on Ethereum and NFTs. Anyone should be able to create and trade an NFT in literally 2 hours of work.
That's a good timeline. Yeah,
that's the goal.
Yeah, so good. Guys, can I just remind people, if you've had a question or if you don't want to, mods, feel free to stay up. But anyone else, if you want to return to the crowd, just so we can see this a little bit easier. Now, Mr. OMW TFYB, I believe you had a question ready to go.
Robbie, I just wanted to touch base in regards to, I know that there has been some talk of buy our collectibles with Omi in the near future. I just wanted to know if that will be something that will be us being able to use on the Immutable X platform. I see that it does have payments of Ethereum at the moment. Just wanted to get a little bit more clarification on.
100%. I mean, yeah, ERC20 full support for any arbitrary ERC20s on our roadmap pretty soon.
Nice. Make life easy when the transition takes place. Did that answer your question there?
Yes, it does. And one last question about the marketplace in regards to Immutable X and VeVe. Two questions, actually. Is it just going to be the marketplace that's going from like the VeVe app to Immutable X?
Dan, sorry, Robbie.
Yeah, do you want to clarify your question?
So currently our marketplace is on the VeVe app and it can't be taken anywhere, as I know. I just wanted to clarify that we're still going to have everything on the VeVe app. It's just now going to be able to be sent to Immutable in other places from Immutable. As he mentioned, it will be have access to OpenSeas once it's on Immutable as well.
Yeah, so I've mentioned a couple of times in previous AMAs and interviews that a lot of that actually is not our decision. It comes down to licensors. You know, some of the licensors we work with are very open to interoperability. Others are still very scared of it. My personal belief is that over the next coming years that, you know, most of the brands and licensors that we work with will open up to that, especially as we start to see some successes with the, you know, with the brands that are open to that. So in terms of the technology side, I mean, 100%, yes, you know, that's why, you know, I reference interoperability. But at the end of the day, where VeVe as a company is selling the licensed goods or licensed IP from our licensed partners. So that decision really comes down to them.
Okay, thank you. And last question in regards to the actual marketplace that Robbie might have a question for is, will there be a 1099B at the end of the year for tax implications that for what has been sold over the past 12 months?
That's probably more of an us thing, I would think.
I don't even know what that is.
No, I mean, yeah, you got to remember we're not in America, so we don't deal with any of those kind of tax forms. But at the end of the day, you know, as an individual, you're responsible for your own accounts, your own record keeping and submitting all of that information to the IRS or whoever your you know, whoever your tax overlords are. So yeah, on our side, we don't have any plans to do that. Obviously, we're an international business, and if we were to do something like that, it wouldn't be just America. It would be the 150 odd countries that VeVe users are open to. So from our perspective, like, you know, like any other sort of products, that's of a similar vein, assuming, let's just say you collect physical collectibles, you know, the one shop that you buy them off is not going to be providing that information to you.
Thank you for that clarification, guys.
No problem. Robbie, how are we doing for time, mate? Do you have a hard stop, or we got a couple more?
No, I'm good. Yeah, okay. let's power through.
Perfect. All right. Who else have we got up here? Alt Crypto King, if you've got a question ready, and then Mimo, if you've got one too, we can take you next.
Yes, I was wondering, for the Master Collector program, if there was going to be any referral programs instituted. Just kind of wondering, because you guys were talking about a point system and maybe something along the lines of also getting an NFT once we get a certain amount of users would be kind of cool. And then my next question for Robbie was, I know that VeVe has kind of cornered the market for NFTs as far as having like maybe Terra Virtue as a competitor. For you, Robbie, who do you guys consider your biggest competitor?
With that question, we'll come back to the master collector a bit later on. That suits, just while we've got Robbie here.
Yeah, sure. Biggest competitor is probably pretty simple. I think it's someone, ultimately, the answer I give is I think, competing blockchains like Flow, Tron, EOS, the ones who are in particular trying to build the future infrastructure of NFT ownership and do so at the expense of Ethereum. We typically view as our competitors. But I welcome it. The only thing that I wish is that there was, clearer information for people to make these decisions. Because at the end of the day, if you choose to go with one of these solutions and they break and they're insecure, that's your money, gone, and that's the value of the business that's been built on it gone. So I think it's really important at the end of the day that people understand the trade-offs they make when they choose various solutions.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to understanding the difference between a real layer 2 and a sidechain. We touched on it earlier, but obviously sidechains have their own set of validator nodes, which really just makes them more susceptible to attack. Or if you have enough money, you really could come and break that network. So, as you said, it's important that the right information gets out there. Am I right that really Immutable is the only layer 2 NFT specific solution, isn't it?
Yeah, we're the only one in production.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Oh, that's good news to know as well. All right. We'll take a few more questions, guys. And yeah, just same again. Like if we can keep the questions, we'll keep them more pertinent to Robbie, and then we can chat afterwards about Master Collector and more VV style stuff. So go ahead, Mr. Memo.
Hey guys, how's it going? So I have a question on, what I really like to hear is a couple bit details on how the VeVe NFTs will be moving from the Go 721 network and on the Go chain to the Ethereum network on ETH 721. I think there's a lot of confusion on this, and the community could really appreciate some details on this move and a little bit more in general about the topic. I would actually also like to know if we will be seeing something like an Ether scan to be able to see our NFT traffic history anytime soon as well.
Yep, I can dive in there. So to answer your second question, yes, we will be absolutely looking to build out an explorer of some sort, and we're working with Immutable to get that up and running. Obviously, it's very important to see price history, and we want to have that fully integrated into the app and into the product. And then in terms of your first question, I mean, from the user's perspective, very little is going to change. Right now, as you know, VeVe is a little bit of a hybrid model. So it really is just going to be about reminting on the new protocol. But in terms of what the user sees and what the user has to do is very, very little. All of that's going to be behind the scenes. The only thing that will be user-centric or forward-facing is really just the OMI token swap, of which we will have a platform set up very, very similar to the Go WOMI, which will allow users at any time to convert their existing Go OMI over to the new OMI.
Perfect. That's probably yep. Go ahead.
I had one more question specifically for Robbie. You had touched on Immutable and OpenSea, and I was wondering if you guys are going to be connecting directly with OpenSea, and anybody partnered with Immutable, will they have access to those free gas fees when transferring and maybe even buying collectibles off of OpenSea?
100%. Yeah, we announced it a couple of months ago. The integration's kicking off. OpenSea will basically be allowing you to trade any asset on Immutable X on OpenSea's front end, completely gas free.
Awesome. That's great news. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The Gale, got a question for us, mate? And then we'll, and then maybe Chief Ajuri.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, for Robbie, can you briefly talk about possibilities regarding DeFi and NFTs, like the combination, staking, lending against your NFTs and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've already seen a huge amount of innovation there this year, whether it's NFT X or Nfts or any one of the DeFi apps that's kind of springing up. As I think I shared before, our plan is really to try and help those kinds of applications be built on. My goal would be an NFT X can be built on Immutable X, but instead of it costing $50 for every single NFT you want to put inside an index fund, it's now gas free. And you could take the ERC20 fundable token you just created back to layer 1 ETH and list it on, a Uniswap or use it as collateral to get a loan. Like this stuff is really, really important because ultimately, typically the secondary financial market is about an order of magnitude larger than the primary assets that it exists to serve. So these kinds of things are really important to support.
Yeah, I think that concept there of being able to use your NFTs as collateral and then take out loans against them in the future and that kind of thing, like that's pretty it's exciting. I mean, obviously on our level we're looking at that with premium collectibles and things, but when NFTs really encompass so much more of the world and illiquid assets, it turns any asset into a financial instrument, which is a super exciting part of the industry. So that's input there. Chief Ajuri, if you've got something lined up, mate, feel free. And then we might throw to Mark.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Rhys. Can you hear me?
Yep, got you there, mate.
Okay, thank you very much. First and foremost, before I ask my question, I just want to say really, really quickly that you're just the greatest spokesman ever. I love watching your videos. You're so interactive, so likable. You're just a lovely guy. Dan, thank you for all the hard work you do. I know some people complain that they think things are going too slowly. I know that you're working your tail off to make this work. We believe in you. I can tell you that about 90% of my crypto assets are locked up in about 20 million OMI. I believe in this project. 90% of what I have is in this project, and I just support you guys. So this is my question. I have two, really. One is, when will you use this opportunity, this transition to Immutable? Are you going to use this opportunity to potentially deal with what has been a constant kind of source of concern, which is the idea that there are too many OMI tokens, basically, is 750 billion or 450 billion. Is this an opportunity for you to leave a substantial amount potentially behind? And how much would you be willing to leave behind, if that's even an option? Just basically that. And then the second question I have is, when the transition is complete, what is the implication for timing on decisions around when we're going to see new exchanges like Binance and KuCoin? And if you could give us a bit of a more concrete timetable about when this swap that we're all talking about for the ERC20 tokens will actually open, because some of us are really antsy to get these tokens swapped so that we can keep them in our cold wallet. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So so just to address the second question around the exchanges, obviously, from our side in the company, actually, sorry, just to step back, thank you so much for your support and the kind words. It is, most of the time people don't come to the fore with such positive affirmations about what we're doing. So I really do appreciate that. Now, when it comes to exchanges, obviously right now, one of the other factors that we want to move over to Immutable or something that's Ethereum based is that it opens up significantly wider options when it comes to listing on exchanges. Obviously, if we're an ERC20, that is very, very, very well, or it's ubiquitous basically across the exchange network. So it's going to make it a lot easier for us to onboard with these exchanges. Right now, we are still absolutely in discussion with exchanges that list GoChain. And one of the things that we just need to consider on our side is that we are right in the middle of this migration. So we really have to decide where we're going to focus our efforts. Do we want to continue working hard on what is ultimately going to be legacy, with GoChain, or are we just going to focus on, the future and what's moving forward? So I know that has always been a point of contention for our OMI holders. But I think the biggest takeaway from this is that the reason, one of the core reasons we are doing this migration is to make it significantly easier for us to onboard with different exchanges. And as David and I have always mentioned, by the end of this year, our plan is still to be on 3, 4, 5 major exchanges. And once this migration takes place, that is going to be significantly easier for us. Stay tuned on that. We are still in the negotiations and in the discussions with exchanges. So we obviously want to make that happen as well. Now to go back to the OMI, right now during this migration, we aren't going. It's more than likely we won't, burn any or leave any behind. Because we just want to make sure that this, even though on the sort of the immutable, the blockchain side, it's a fairly easy transition, but because the token is so heavily integrated into the app, there are a number of different complexities around the migration. Obviously, none that are insurmountable. It's really just making sure that we have everything nailed down on our side. So when we do the transition, everything's going to go perfectly as it does in the world of development. As I'm sure Robbie can attest to. Right now during this transition we won't be leaving any behind. We have considered something along the lines of doing a 10 to 1 or 100 to 1 or something like that. So perceivably, it doesn't seem like there is so many out there in the total circulating supply. But I think just remember that really the supply is everything that's outside the reserve, the burn wallet, the vault wallet, and the number still may seem significantly high when we talk about 300 billion or 400 billion. Even if we were to do a 100 to 1 or something like that, ultimately there's still going to be the same amount of tokens out there in the circulating supply. So, our real focus between now and the end of the year is absolutely to just make sure we can instill as much utility into the token. And as you guys probably know, we recently announced that we are working on the OMI directly to NFTs. So no one has to worry about doing gems or anything like that, or converting their OMI to gems and then getting NFT. That is sort of the phase 1 of bringing utility into the token. And then obviously as we move further forward, there'll be things like staking for the master collector program, using OMI to buy specific collectibles directly in the store. Even potentially offering discounts to people who are spending in OMI rather than in fiat, and just really making sure that there is some really strong and solid utility to the token there. All of this stuff has been on the roadmap for quite a long time, and I think anyone who's on the call who's been following VeVe for a long time, knows that we really went through 4 months of just like, holy shit, we've got 200% or 2,000% more users than we thought we would, and we've had to really focus on a lot of re-engineering in the back end to deal with the demand. So now that is all kind of in place, we're moving forward with things like the migration to Immutable, building in this extra kind of token utility. In terms of the timeline for the Immutable migration, please, take this with a grain of salt, because, like I say, shit just happens in development, and sometimes things just take a little bit longer. So, which is why I don't normally like to, discuss timeframes. But we are tentatively, it will more than likely be happening between the end of July and the end of August. Is when we will start to have, when everything will be in place and the token swap site will be up and so forth. So, really, it's only another 1 month or 1.5 months. In the real world, that's 6 weeks. in the world of crypto, 2,000 years. We have 2 feet. We have 2 feet in the crypto world and in the real world. So, as a real world business, we actually move very fast. In the crypto space, unless we're bringing something out, hour on hour, it seems like you're a bit of a dinosaur. But yeah, please be rest assured that we are, working very hard on these things in the back end.
Thank you so much for taking the time to respond. I'm with you guys for the next decade. I am not releasing these coins for anything in the world. God bless you guys. Thank
you very much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And thank you for the kind words you sent my way too at the start of that. Really appreciate it. Mark, Mr. VeVeWiki, you got a question there as well?
Hey guys, welcome to VeVe Van Robbie. I'm down in Melbourne, so it's good to, great news. It's, another Australian-New Zealand factor in this whole thing. So one sort of joke question we've had is, it this going to help us Anzacs with getting quicker access to drops, having those, the servers down here and Immutable close to us?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, every second counts.
Every millisecond counts. My second question is, Robbie, have you guys done it with any of your other projects? But in terms of us being able to rent out our collectibles or even lend our collectibles, we had Claire, who was on earlier on. She's actually going to Liverpool next weekend, where the Batman film was filmed, and I'm happy to lend her my Rizzo, but it's a trust thing, right? So could we actually do that somehow with Immutable? Could we charge for it, or could we do it for free and maybe have it, okay, I'm going to give it to Claire for 24 hours and then it automatically comes back to me?
Yeah, good question. I actually don't know the answer to this, to be completely honest. I don't think it's possible, based on the nature of ownership, and unless you've got it in a, what you can do is you can, have collateral, and you can kind of say, well, this is backed by this thing. But if you're giving something to someone, which is what a loan is giving them possession of it for a certain time. In the real world, that's enforced by counterparties and collateral. And that's the same thing with the blockchain. So, the simpler answer is, if you wanted to just functionally loan it, as in have it show up in whatever environment that is, that could be implemented by the application. So they could say, well, it doesn't matter that it's not that technically what they own in their NFT, but we can show it as this. We can kind of implement a loan, a lending thing on the top. It is a really tricky thing. People have obviously been trying to do it for ages, but it's got the exact same risk and difficulties as real life lending does. And I think that's beautiful, because that's what ownership means.
If I can just add to that. So this is something that we have been exploring quite a lot internally as well. We do get quite a few requests for the ability to, loan or rent out the, a particular NFT. And ultimately is something that we would like to do one day with, all of the edition ones that, the VeVe company will always own and will be part of the VeVeVerse. But, if you can rent out or have that edition number 1 for a certain amount of time, that's something that's really cool. So, from our perspective, it is very much on the application side. So, while the the ownership at the blockchain level will ultimately not change, we can implement certain things within the app that will allow another user to have someone else's, or access to someone else's NFT for a certain amount of time, and then during that period of time, we will do things like, prevent the ability to transfer the collectible out of the app, or, list it in the marketplace. All of that stuff we can do fairly easily on the application side without the need to really transfer ownership in the back end. And, to be honest, I think this really is the safest way to do it. One of the things I think all of us here who've been part of the VeVe family since the beginning of the year is that there's going to be someone out there who's going to try and scam you. Someone who's going to be dodgy. So at the end of the day, we very much need to be, I think, taking a bit more of a centralized approach to that, rather than actually transferring ownership between users, as that will have some inherent issues. And I can already hear Lucas on the support saying, don't do it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. We're seeing it quite a bit with some of these other projects like Bored Ape and even CryptoPunks, where they're letting other Twitter users use their CryptoPunk or Bored Ape for a certain duration to help, get their following happening and stuff like that. So I think in the VeVeVerse, that could be cool. Like if you see someone walking around with, I don't know, the Rizzo skin, if we ever go that far, you're going to capture their eye, you're going to capture their attention with it. So yeah, that'd be pretty exciting if we could do that down the track.
Absolutely. I envision the day where you can rent out your DeLorean time machine. We have digital rap videos using it in the background, all those kind of things. Could be really fun. All right, let's take a couple more.
Don't rent it out to Hello K because you'll never get it back.
I've got to run on the hour as well, guys.
No worries, man. All right, we'll take one or two more and then we'll call it a day, I think. Crane, CRVNE, you got a question there, mate? Maybe not. The Todd, you've got one lined up, mate. Jump in.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll make this quick because Chief of Jury basically took my intro word for word minus the 20 million. but I do have a question for Robbie and one for Dan. I came into this AMA pretty late, so it may have already been answered on the Immutable X side, but I know that you guys are on our layer 2 that sits on top of Ethereum. And with the Ethereum 2.0 in development, once that is up and functioning, will we see some kind of effect on you guys' end? And for Dan, I had a question about the coin to switch over to Immutable X. All of the accounts, there are accounts out there with people who have homies who no longer keep track of VeVe for whatever reason, and those coins will be sitting back on GoChain and remain on GoChain, and they probably won't even, know to switch them over to Immutable X. Is there something along the line for those coins that are going to be left back on the GoChain when we switch over because they're no longer active investors in the company?
Sure. Yeah. Let me answer that second one. I mean, ultimately, those people have purchased those OMI tokens and they have, full ownership over them. And from our perspective, the token swap platform will remain open for an infinite amount of time or an indefinite amount of time. Mr. Mellowman, I'm just going to mute you there because a bit of background noise coming in. If you want to mute yourself.
Yep. I think I might have got him already.
Can you mute him? Okay. So ultimately, we need to honor anyone who owns OMI tokens. So there is a chance that there will be people out there who have, maybe forgotten they've got some OMI token, or perhaps, maybe just won't end up going through the token conversion process. But at the end of the day, our responsibility to them is to leave that option open for them at any time, even if it's 1 year from now or 2 years from now. They suddenly realize that they've got some OMI and they want to use it. They'll always have the ability and the option to go and swap those tokens.
Okay,
Perfect.
cool.
Yeah, and to the first question, which is E2, yeah, I mean, we'll embrace E2. That'll make our costs cheaper. We're very synergistic with it. Vitalik has talked about how the future of Ethereum scaling is going to be, zero knowledge rollups based. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I wanted to leave on a note as well, but just as we're wrapping up, which is, part of what we're trying to build with Immutable X is infrastructure, and the other thing we're trying to build is a community. And that's why I think it was, it was awesome and overwhelming to see the reaction when we announced this partnership and to kind of have the love from this incredible community that's been built here. And I just wanted to stay involved because we plan on helping to really cement and forge these partnerships more properly as these partnerships go live through some of the mechanisms of our own as well. So I part of our strategy is early adopters of Immutable X. We want to help make sure they're part of the ecosystem as well. So stay tuned here over the next few months.
Thanks, Robbie. Thanks. That sounds like a breadcrumb if I've ever heard one. But just from all of us, thank you for taking the time to be here today. We're all incredibly excited to be moving over to Immutable and Ethereum. We really appreciate it, and yeah, welcome to the fam. I'm sure all of our community will stay up to date with yours, and we'll try to help each other grow. So thanks again.
Thanks, Robbie. Appreciate you coming on.
Of course, Dan. Thanks, Rhys, as well.
No
Sorry
problem,
about the absolute Luddite start from me.
Don't worry about it. Our community's used to it from me, so it's no problem at all. All right, cheers, mate. And you can just exit the chat too, Rob.
Easy. See you, everyone. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Guys, maybe we'll go for another 5 minutes if anyone else has some questions or wants to wrap that up. Dan, have you got a little bit of time left, or are you out of here as well?
Yeah, I can probably do 5 minutes, and then I do need to bounce. Got a Superman drop and a Slimer drop tomorrow, so a lot to prepare for.
Well,
it's tomorrow New Zealand time.
Tomorrow New Zealand time. Now that we're here, I may as well ask the question everybody wants to know. Are they dropping at the same time?
They are not dropping at the same time. And I think we just tweeted about it. We actually decided that really because the Superman coming out, 8,888 editions, and then with Slimer currently what is he, 5,500 or 5,400 editions. We know from last week's drop with Ron English, which was 11,000 editions, which sold out literally in minutes. We just felt that it wouldn't be fair to drop both of them at the same time, because the reality is you're only going to have the opportunity to get one of them. So what we're actually going to do is, and this will be make all of our Southern Hemisphere family happy, which is the Slimer will actually be dropped at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, 8 a.m. Pacific time. So you're going to have 10 hours in between to go make some more money somewhere. Maybe try and get 2 Supermans and sell one off, so you got some extra coin for Slimer. We are going to be dropping them at different times. We just felt that was the most fair way for the community, because the Slimer is very much in demand from what the response is on social, and we just thought that would be the most fair way.
Absolutely. And how many, do you know off the top of your head, how many editions of Slimer are being released?
I think it's 5,500.
Okay.
It's been up there for a while. So I imagine that that's possibly going to go minutes. I'm not too sure.
Probably the way these things are going. Yeah. All right, let's do a couple more just before you have to get out of here. Mr. Melon Man, I had to mute you before, but I will unmute you if you have a question ready to go. Yeah, no problem.
Did we lose you there?
Yeah, that's all right. Yep, I caught most of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I mean, I guess with the collectibles like Rizzo that were very early season one. I think the main thing to remember is back then VeVe had very little users. I mean, going back to January, I think Rhys and I were talking about this the other day. We had probably 200, 300 users. So when we drop these collectibles, there's more than likely whales out there who own significant portions of these early drops, and at the end of the day, it's it is quite difficult for us to control what someone does if they're a whale. If they're holding 30% of the Rizzo supply, They obviously can have fake accounts and go in there and sort of bid things up. But really, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to just being very wary of who you're buying off, who you're bidding against. We have to be very careful about restrictions on bidding. When the Master Collector program comes to fruition, we will actually have. It'll more than likely be that there will be some limitations around the market, and you will have to be a certain level Master Collector in order to participate in the full spectrum of services in the market. And the reason for this is so we know that you are, in order to be, Master Collector level 3 or level 4, you've already had to be a part of the community. You need to own a certain number of collectibles. So there's certain kind of governance ways that we can have an impact on the market, and then there'll more than likely be, to some degree, a form of rating system. Like you mentioned there before, that you go to a profile where a user has no followers, collectibles. There'll be some sort of rating system to see how many trades that user's done or whatever. There are some things that we can do to help minimize that kind of behavior. But at the end of the day, there's a popular site here in New Zealand called Trade Me, which is kind of like the eBay of New Zealand. Of course, I've had my friends ring me up at the 11th hour, so Dan, bid on my thing, so it forces someone else to bid higher. This isn't something that's unique to VeVe. It's really any kind of platform that offers in any sort of auction capability. There are some things we can do, but ultimately it's a problem that sort of plagues these kind of services.
Yeah, I might just add. Sorry, go.
You go. I'm good. Rhys? Can anyone?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dan.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I think I lost you for a second then. Sorry, that was all I had to say.
Yep. Yeah, go for the other question.
Sorry, I think I cut out there. Was there a second question that I might have missed?
Yeah, that's all right. Dan's mic might be playing up there. You'll need to unwrap them essentially, and then convert them to ERC20. You'll have time to do it and all of that thing, but I guess the idea is once we migrate, we kind of want to migrate everything to the same token standard, the same kind of platform. So just to keep it all uniform. Otherwise, we're going to end up with some wrapped OMI, some Go20 OMI, some ERC20 OMI, and it's all just going to get way too messy. It's a bit messy as it is. So yeah, once that transition happens, I think we'll try to amalgamate everything back into the same token standard. The wrapped OMI initially was really just to provide everybody an opportunity to trade their OMI on ETH, to add liquidity to Uniswap. A lot of people, especially in the US, right now, I think Bit4x is the only exchange around that offers services to customers in the US. So by listing on the DEX, it gave customers there the opportunity to pick up the token. And obviously, it gives people in the community the opportunity to earn LP rewards from the pool as well. But once we move across, we'll change all that around. Everything will go to ERC20, and then I imagine we will reopen a new pool on Uniswap or whatever DEXs are the most appropriate at the time. Does that answer your question? Yeah, no problem. We might take one or two more, guys. Dan, have you sorted the microphone thing? I don't know whether you cut it in and out just then.
Yeah, I can hear you now. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, got you there. Perfect. Okay, send this trip if you've got a question for us there, mate. Go for it.
Hey. Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep, so we'll go send this to Trip and then Van, if that works out with everyone. Or the other way around?
Hello?
Yep, we got you there, mate. Go for it.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I ain't know if you get me or not. Well, that's pretty cool, man. I appreciate y'all, man. It's the first time I've been able to speak to somebody. That's pretty dope. I had 3 questions really. I pretty much like the platform. Everything seems like it's a good business. It's just really good. But let me get straight to the point. My first question was how far along is like the masterclass, like collectible, VV master collectible? How far along are you guys to releasing that?
We will be releasing some details about the Master Collector program more than likely by the end of July. As I mentioned a bit earlier, we really did lose kind of the first quarter on developing out, a whole range of features which are now back in development, just due to the, needing to scale up for the demand, which it's a great problem to have. So yeah, once we release the information about the Master Collector program, we'll then include some timelines around that as well. But we are underway now, just finalizing all of the scoping side of it, and then also because there is going to be some blockchain, some OMI features involved in the Master Collector program. We absolutely want to be through the migration with Immutable before we really bring that into the app experience.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I had 2 more questions. The other question is, I know you guys said on your website that the VeVeVerse will be released this year, but at what % you think the VeVeVerse will be released at? Y'all got all these ideas, I'm sure, of how y'all want the VeVeVerse to be. At what % you think it will actually be at when it do get released?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really want to comment on any features or timelines per se, just because, like I said before, development is a wonderful world to be in. So if you're looking for a career of ups and downs and difficulties, by all means, developer or start your own app. But the whole plan is to release the first version of the VeVeVerse. Same deal with everything else. When we start to release information about what that is and what that's going to be, we'll be posting that out on our Medium or on our website, which will give a little bit more clarity. So yeah, just stay tuned on that. We've given you guys a first sort of preview of what it might be. And I guess, one sort of glimpse into the progression of the VeVeVerse is that, early July, beginning to mid-July, we'll be rolling out the version 2 of the showroom, which I was looking at some images the other day. It's looking absolutely stunning. And this will give a slight glimpse of, what we're sort of intending for the VeVeVerse. But yeah, more details to come on that one. Okay,
just one more question. As far as the verification of the NFTs, I know you guys said it's verified and, you could track who owns it. But on my end, I know the name on my VeVe account says I own it. I'm the owner of it and it has my actual name. But then you got random names like Poppy the Seed or something, let's say. And it say Poppy the Seed owns that NFT. But what if something happens with the actual system and accounts get lost and people got to remake their accounts? How do you, and somebody else, let's say somebody else create Poppy the Seed and, then they transfer it over to a different, how do you actually verify that's them? You know what I'm saying? It ain't we don't have socials or nothing like that to actually verify the NFT. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, so as we were discussing just before, once we do move over to Immutable, then there will be a lot more, on-chain record of the ownership of the collectible, its previous ownership, its historical pricing, and a lot of that information we will be including into the app as well. I think just on that note, one thing to consider is that, literally a year ago, no one really even knew or were doing anything with NFTs unless you were basically deep in the crypto world. And, even beyond a year ago when we were negotiating with our licensors, a lot of them were still very, I'll just say a bit nervous about, blockchain and digital ownership, because it's a very new thing, and they weren't really too sort of up to speed with it. But now, obviously, with all of the attention that's been on NFT, it's sort of propelled it far more into the spotlight, and there's a lot more sort of a comfort factor around the NFT. So in our first instance of building out VeVe, we did have a bit of a hybrid system for a couple of reasons. Number one is that at the end of the day, our audience are collectors, and within that collector audience, there is a percentage of those users who are crypto oriented, who understands what it means to own their private key or to have direct ownership over that NFT. However, if you don't know anything about that, then that has some inherent risks in the sense that, you may accidentally lose your key and therefore lose your entire collection. However, now, as I say that, the world is becoming a lot more educated and is moving far more into the mainstream, and people are starting to become aware and understand what that means. We will allow those sort of interoperability and those ownership capabilities to extend as we continue to develop VeVe and as we move over to Immutable. It's more than likely that users will still need to opt in to that, to those features within VeVe, as in, you will have to agree that you are taking over the ownership of this collectible. In the beginning, it'll more than likely be when they're minted. They will still have ownership under VeVe. For the reason being is that, if let's just say a non-crypto user comes in and they get scammed or whatever, we want to make sure that we still have the ability to return that collectible back to the user. However, as I say, that functionality will extend that if you do know what you're doing and you do want to move that collectible outside of the VeVe platform, assuming that the licensor has approved and agreed with that, those features will be coming.
Okay, cool, man. I appreciate y'all for y'all time, man. And shit, I really do enjoy the concepts and the development that you guys are doing. Like, at first I wasn't too much of a collector, but getting on VeVe, I done bought like over 25 NFTs already, man. It's getting me more into collecting and even outside in the real world, actually looking at things in a different way and, getting more into collecting things that I'm passionate about as far as entertainment and everything goes. So thank you guys. I really do appreciate that.
That's awesome to hear, and this is something that I do see come up quite a lot. That people say that they weren't even collectors before they started, becoming part of the VeVe family. And I think the cool thing is that obviously David and myself have been in collecting world for quite a long time, and up till now, if you wanted to go and collect something, like even honestly, even if it was a pair of sneakers or some kind of like cause drop or something like that, you need to know where that's taking place, how it's happening. Sometimes you need an invite to get there. But the great thing about VeVe is that it literally makes collecting so accessible because it is literally in the palm of your hand all day, every day. So we've seen a huge increase in, people telling us, like yourself, that, I never collected before, and now, I really enjoy the whole sort of process of it.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you, guys.
No worries at all. Dan, maybe one or two more, and then we'll wrap it up. Does that work with you, or you got to get out of here?
Yeah, let's go one more. So I do need to press on.
Rapid questions, if possible.
Yep. Is that Mr. Volt? Go ahead, bro.
This is actually OMW.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
I just wanted to know, Dan, in particular, are you guys looking for any senior software engineers? And if so, what language are you guys looking for?
We are always looking for engineers. Are you front end or back end?
Back end.
Yeah, back end.
With some experience in the front end as well, I believe. Yeah. It's actually my aunt, but she's been an investor in OMI since February, so she just wants to help out as much as possible.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we do have a very vigorous recruitment process, just to make sure that the people we are getting in, number one, their fundamentals are very strong. and number two, that their tech stack is in alignment. I mean, on the front end, it's mostly React Native, and then on the back end and front end, there's obviously a lot of JavaScript, TypeScript, those kinds of technologies. We do often have job postings on angellist.co, so probably best to jump on there and just search for Ecomi and see whatever listings are open. I actually don't handle or manage that side of it. That's all managed by our CTO. So that's probably all I can really say on it, to be honest.
No worries. Thanks so much, guys. I do appreciate it. And last question: has the clock been fixed?
Clockgate has not yet been fixed, but it is in the pipeline.
No worries. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate all your efforts. I've been a strongholder for the past few months, and I can't wait to look forward to what we move forward to in the future.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys, I do need to bounce. I've got a Superman ready to upload. Everybody's excited for. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone coming on, and honestly, it's great to have Robbie come over and give us a little bit of insight into what they're doing over at Immutable. I think it's really encouraging that they're so strong on their fundamentals when it comes to what they're doing in the NFT space, and I think they have a really strong vision for for the future of this space and where it's going, and we're very excited to to be sort of merged into what they're doing and vice versa. Yeah, on that note, thank you very much. Good luck, everyone, for tomorrow. I hope you manage to get your hands on a Slimer and a Superman. Boy, that'll be a great Thursday or Friday, wherever you are. And I'm very excited to see a lot of the cool AR stuff coming up. And I know I was having a chat with Supergirl earlier, and she's saying she's really pleased that Superman is coming into the system.
She's been waiting a while, eh?
She's been a bit lonely. Been a few crypto sniffing around.
That's it. And guys, just as a little extra tidbit for everyone who stayed till the end, we are running a bit of a giveaway with Immutable. It's just gone out on the Ecomi Twitter page. Pretty standard stuff. Like, share, retweet, tag a friend, get excited, all that kind of stuff. And I think we're giving away a DeLorean time machine, a secret rare 2D Ultraman cover art, and a Superman. I think we're going to hold on to and give one of those away. So if you want to enter that giveaway as well, and obviously keep your eye on our socials, because from here on in, it's there's promos and giveaways happening all the time. So if you haven't jumped in there yet, I'd strongly suggest it. All right. That's it. Thank you, Dan, for your time. I think Robbie and that are gone. We might wrap this up here too, guys, and we'll come back next week. VeVeVolt, did you have a pressing question that you wanted to get in before we wrapped up? Nope. I don't know if your mic's working or you're muted, maybe.
All right, guys, I better bounce. Thanks so much for joining us today, and good luck for the drop tomorrow. And,
too easy. Thanks.
Next AMA. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. All right, guys. I think that's it. It seems everyone's, we might be out of questions. Thank you very much for joining. Jump in that giveaway, and we will chat next week, I would assume.
Thank you. Take care.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Thank you, guys.